So we'll ask the panel to remain while we go through the question and answer session with the audience. I'll just make a point about paradigms and how we think. I was in Amsterdam just recently, and as you know, there's a massive bike culture there, just amazing. And I was in a cab as it happened, and we were waiting, and all these bikes were just going by, and just had to wait and wait and wait. And I said to the cab driver, "Does this bother you, waiting so long for all these people on their bikes?" And he looked around at me sort of semi-dismissively, and he said, "Not as much as if they were all in cars." and I thought, massively mature mindset, and that's something I think that we could learn a lot from. So we're going to open the floor to questions, and we have a question over there. If you could keep your questions brief, please, that would be appreciated.
I just wanted to raise one of the issues that is sort of paradoxical, where we fix a piece of rural road, rural highway, by taking out the wriggly bits and making it straight, and then people drove at even greater speed and have even more gory accidents. So the life is full of these sort of strange paradoxes, but this is one I've noticed particularly with our urban highways, rural highways, that there seems to be no ultimate solution, because people will just take advantage of the improved road to go at an even greater pace.
Andrew.
Thank you for that. I suppose probably two statements there. I think if you're going to straighten out your roads and encourage higher speeds, then they need to be designed in a way that's more forgiving. And I think some of the slides that were, I'm not sure that it is working. I think some of the slides that were up earlier probably illustrate the sort of measures that can be put in place to make higher speeds more acceptable and more forgiving. So that's the separation, it's the barriers, and perhaps the runoff road protection, so that if you fall asleep at the wheel, you don't end up driving into a river or off a ravine, that sort of thing. So I think it's possible to make straighter rural roads safer and have higher speeds that are acceptable. But equally, I think a lot of our rural roads are relatively well self-explaining, to your point about the windy bits. The conundrum we've got in Auckland, and probably New Zealand for that matter, is we have a habit of putting 100k speed restrictions onto those windy roads, and we saw the Riverhead Coatesville example up here earlier. We're at a great point in time now where we've actually got the ability to make changes in that space, so we can accept that those roads don't need to be straightened out, but we do need a lower speed environment in those situations, and we do need an environment that's more forgiving. So to me, those roads are actually self-explaining. Their geometrics and their design dictate and lend itself to a driver understanding that you need to drive slower.
Perfect. And we do have a lot of rural roads in Auckland. You have a question? Thank you very much.
I haven't heard you mention anything about older people. Now, I am now an older person, and I get the bus when I can, but I haven't got a bus shelter. So imagine what it would have been like yesterday. Where I'm living, we had 25 millimetres of rain, or hail. It was still around 3 hours later. So without a bus shelter up there, it is very difficult. Now, otherwise, when we come into town, where can we park? My husband was unable to walk very far at all. In fact, he became completely unable. But we used to carry a little wheelchair in the back of the car. And so he would get there and use the wheelchair. But those places are getting fewer and fewer. So that would limit him altogether from getting anywhere, unless he can park somewhere close. He's no longer with me, so that's all right. I haven't got that problem. But please, do consider, as people are getting older and older here. We're not all able to get on bikes. I can get on a bike, but I'm not very wanting to go anywhere particularly, just for pleasure.
Okay, no, thank you. So, Matts, you did touch on you know, you thought that crossing the road if you were older, it could have been quite difficult. How do we build in the right environment for our seniors, of which there are going to be more and more in the next 20 years in Auckland? Those aged over 65 are going to double. Those aged over 75 are going to double. So over 65 is going to go from 220 to 440,000. It's a lot of people. We really need to keep our seniors in mind. How do we get Vision Zero to be meaningful for our senior citizens?
I think in general, if we plan and put the vulnerable road users on the top on our agenda, that will be important for all of us. So we have to change the way that we give priority to things, I think. So that might be one of the answers, yeah.
I guess it's not happening quick enough, but intelligent mobility is going to be one of the most liberating new, I guess, technology applications for older people. It's just going to give them amazing opportunities for transport and effective transport and transport right to their door. That is just a few years away, but not too far. So we need to ensure that we have our most vulnerable citizens at the top of the list when we think about road safety. Do we have the next question, please? Just over there. Thank you very much.
Last week at the Institute Traffic Conference in Nelson, Matts-Åke and all the safety partners were given some information on the highest fatality rating in New Zealand currently, and the worst issue at the moment, 1 in 4 fatalities involve trucks. Now, they don't necessarily involve the driver, and we should be thinking, and I hope that the panel can perhaps discuss that, how the mass component of travel is affecting our fatality rates.
Who'd like to take that one on? No one jumping to their feet right at the moment, but we'll give them a few seconds.
I suppose one of the comments, there's John out there, isn't it? Yeah, I suppose one of the comments I'd make is certainly, and I don't know the detail around all of those statistics, and I wasn't at the conference, but we do certainly have an issue in terms of exposure for cyclists in that space, in terms of being pulled under wheels and trucks and not having the side protection. And I think that there's quite a bit of work that's being done at the moment at a national level to try and encourage the freight industry and the truckies to come to the party in terms of side protection on trucks to at least provide some sort of benefit for the cycle exposure, the cyclist risk exposure that we've got at the moment.
Very good. Further questions? Thank you.
Hi. I'm just interested to know how the panel think that automated vehicles will impact road safety in the future and what planning is being done around that.
Yeah, I think the safety community in general, they are quite skeptical about it. But from a Vision Zero point of view, we think that there are a really chance now, and we need to take advantage of all this technology. It's not all about these automated self-driving cars, but it's all the technology that will be needed to make that happen. And those technology will be very beneficial from a safety point of view. We have lane departure system, auto brake systems, lots of this kind of technology. So we think that from a safety point of view, will be a great benefit with things that happen. And it's amazing of how quick it goes and how much momentum it is in the whole discussion about automated driving. So, for example, in Sweden now, in Gothenburg, I think this year actually, we will have a large-scale demonstration project with self-driving cars. But it's not only about self-driving car, it's about the whole system, because you have to have an infrastructure that provides provides the right environment for these self-driving cars. So in short, we think that there is really an opportunity here from a safety point of view.
So we've got a question just over there. Then, sir, you can take your hand down. You'll be next, and then you'll be after that with the white shirt. So could we have your question? Person with the microphone. Where is that? Oh, there you are.
Dr. Belin, thank you for a very excellent address. And just before I ask a question, I did notice in one of your slides of hazards that you had elk. And I always remember when I was driving home in Vemlan one night from Sona, and I had an elk run right out in front of the road in front of me, out of the mist, and I nearly collected it. I just managed to swerve and avoid. But my question is, I was delighted, well, I'm delighted that you mentioned roundabouts. And I'm going to say that it's time that Auckland Transport took note, because in other cities or other towns throughout New Zealand, I've seen lots of roundabouts, but Auckland Transport seem to be very adverse to them, and they like to use traffic lights. And the classic example is construction at the moment, which they will be well aware of, down on Tamaki Drive, Ngāpipi Road, when the submissions and everyone wanted roundabouts, you went for traffic lights. And traffic lights cause more problems, and I see roundabouts seem to ensure the traffic flow steadily, less accidents and less problems. And I think you've made a very important point tonight.
Andrew?
Auckland Transport, take note.
Thank you, and duly noted, obviously. It's probably not worth getting into a debate about the benefits, the pros and cons between roundabouts and signalised intersections, but it is probably fair to say that we are focused on looking at roundabouts as a solution in appropriate locations. But roundabouts aren't necessarily the right solution in every situation. And it's certainly my firm opinion that when it comes to Tamaki Drive, a roundabout would have been a very difficult solution to implement, in fact, probably near on impossible to implement in that very and specific location, especially if we were going to cater for the serious problem that we've got at that intersection, which is cycle safety, because the footprint and the space that we have available to us without extensive reclamation just doesn't exist to be able to put a safety system in, or system that will cater, like we saw in some of the images up there, safely to cyclists and pedestrians. So I do note your point. I take it on board, and we are looking at using roundabouts more often. It's part of how we're going to address the safety challenge in front of us.
Thank you. Sir, you've got the microphone.
Matt, thank you for your address, and congratulations on the reduction in Sweden of road deaths. What was our comparative per 100,000? This is a question for you. What is our comparative per 100,000 rate in Auckland and in New Zealand to act as a kick up the arse to get us to compete with Stockholm and Sweden?
The Auckland statistic, I believe, is 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 3 per 100,000.
And New Zealand wide?
Unfortunately, I don't know the statistic for New Zealand.
I believe at the moment it's around 7 currently. 7.7 at the moment for New Zealand wide.
Thank you.
The next question, so we'll just go over there. If you could just take the microphone just behind you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. So just getting back to attitudes, what I've always noticed, traffic engineers emphasise this new change to the roading will decrease the travel time by so many minutes. And us motorists just interpret that we're getting there faster. And I think that's just the wrong emphasis. I think perhaps a challenge to traffic engineers, emphasise this change will decrease the accident rate by so much.
Nice point. Very good. I don't think that requires an answer. It was an answer in itself. Very good point. We'll take that on board. The next question, I think, was just over here. Yes. Are you able to... Oh, sorry, we'll take that one first. Okay. Just over here in this second row. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I want to actually acknowledge the point that Rees made, Kira Rees. He was talking about the way in which we addressed the issue of tobacco and what didn't work and what did. And I remember reading an article about Are Cars the New Tobacco? And we've talked a lot about the elephant in the room. From an Auckland transport perspective, apart from the nudges we could get by having better public transport and cycle safety, what are we really doing about having fewer people using cars?
A lot. In fact, if you ever look at the public transport statistics, they are changing very dramatically. It just comes off a very low base. So without going into all the detail, you take, for example, since we've introduced electric trains, we have had very significant success in massive uplift in patronage. In fact, we're about 4.5 years ahead of our business case, and we've just signed up for an additional set of 15 trains. That's 45 cars, and that's in advance of the CRL. But I think it's realistic to say that Auckland has currently very limited rapid transit. We've got the train and we've got the Northern Busway. So there's a number of other elements, the CRL, but that's time in the building. There's Amity, which is progressing at glacial pace. We would like to see that funded much more quickly because there's a huge solution there, but it's funded very incrementally. Of course, with the new government, light rail, which we've been a proponent of, it looks extremely likely. The Northwestern Busway or perhaps some other mode out there. So we are trying to develop a rapid transit because we know for a fact that where there's rapid transit, people use it very much. And a frequent network around that and then a connecting system, it takes time to develop. We are looking to have a real suite of modal options. But modal options are insufficient in themselves to get the massive problem of car dependency addressed. And that's an attitudinal issue, and that's something we have to take a different approach to. We've actually got a chance for perhaps one or two last questions. We've got one over here, and then you, sir, then we'll be done.
Thank you for the great presentation.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you for the great presentation. It was very eye-opening. It's one of those these slides you have shown with the 2+1 lanes with the median barrier in the middle. What is the speed environment, and where would you recommend that to be implemented?
So we have a quite large, we used to have a quite large network with 90 kilometers. So when we installed this middle barrier, we were actually able to increase the speed to 100 kilometers. So these roads have 100, most of them have 100 kilometers. So it works very well from a safety perspective up to 100 kilometers. And if you don't have this middle barrier, we will have 80 kilometers instead.
Okay, we're down to the last question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. But towards the end of the presentation, Matt, you mentioned that demonstration projects were probably the way to get the ball rolling. You can take I'd appreciate hearing from you perhaps what was a very successful demonstration project in Sweden, in Stockholm, or somewhere else in the world, or you might like to take on the big challenge of saying what do you think might be a good demonstration project in New Zealand after your brief experience here.
Okay, for us it was important to show that this is not rocket science. So we actually build, we are part of the European Union, so we have rolling chairman of the European Union. So when we were in charge for European Union, we decided to do a lot of things. We organized a meeting with all politicians from Europe and so on, And then we did some demonstration project both in the urban area and the rural area. And in that time we also have Saab, you know, the car, the Saab, and they provide cars with alkolocks and that sort of thing, because we wanted to show both the public, of course, but also all these politicians that this is not rocket science. We have lots of good solutions that we can start to implement. And I think that was a very important demonstration project, actually. So and we work very systematically with this kind of thing to show how it works and so on. So I think that is very good to make things happen.